So let's talk about the F-150 Lightning. Is the F-150 Lightning done? Can we stick a fork in it? I don't think so. Let's discuss. So everybody who's been following the news has seen that the F-150 Lightning is no longer being produced as of November 2025. This kind of happened last month actually, and it's continuing. But Ford, from what they're telling everybody, never did intend for this to be a permanent shutdown. You know, they had that huge fire at one of their main suppliers that makes the aluminum sheet that they, stamp the body out of on these things. So if they're not getting that material, then they can't build the trucks. So Ford was either not getting as much material or they weren't getting any and they were relying on the stuff they had stockpiled. I don't know. But bottom line is there was a massive disruption in their supply chain that significantly affected the production of F-150 pickup trucks. And so, as any smart business would do, they had decisions to make, and they decided to use the resources that they did have to build the most profitable trucks, the ones that sell the most, which of course is the gasoline F-150. And so they put the F-150 Lightning on the shelf, and the intention was for it to be a temporary halt in production. Now, if you ask a Ford representative right now, as of the middle of November 2025 here, if you ask them right now, I know because I have, they will tell you that they still intend to fire up the assembly line and start building F-150 Lightnings again when they can do so. You know, when that supplier is fully back online and everything's back to normal again, they intend to start making F-150 Lightnings again. And, they've already announced the 2026 model year of the F-150 Lightning right before all of this happened. So I think they will probably start making these trucks again. Now, let's be honest, if you look at, the F-150, they sell hundreds of thousands of F-150 trucks every year. The Lightning is less than 5% of that. So you can see why during this temporary shutdown, it has given Ford an excuse to at least start talking about it. Internally, that's what the news has been, is that internally they're discussing the future of this truck. What are we going to do with this truck? That again, this shutdown was out of their control. They didn't have anything to do with it. It wasn't intentional, obviously, but it has given them an opportunity to at least discuss the future of the truck. Now, like I just said, they say that they're going to come back online pretty soon and start making them again, so we will see. All of this brings up an interesting point, is what does the future look like for electric trucks and electrified vehicles in general at Ford Motor Company? Well, just today I was looking through some job listings. I was actually not looking for this specifically. I was looking to see if the Louisville truck plant, which is right up the road from me, has any job openings up there, just out of curiosity. And so I'm browsing through the Ford Careers website, and I noticed that they are currently advertising for a lot of jobs that have to do with the future of electrified vehicles. They've got, they're looking for engineers to work on, for example, battery thermal management systems and design, high performance vehicles that Ford's going to release in the future that are going to be electric. Think Mustang Mach-E, for example, in the future of that program. And maybe other vehicles that are high performance vehicles that will be electric. So they're looking for people to work on that program. Electrified transmissions, that's the next thing in transmission technology, is electrification within the transmission. So, they are actively hiring people right now to work on electric vehicles and electric vehicle components. And what that obviously tells you is that Ford still views the future as an electrified future. Now, right now, the current administration in this country has really dialed back a lot of that push for electrification. And I think there are definitely some good reasons for that. People generally don't want EVs. The automotive companies in this country don't like EVs because of the fact that it costs so much to produce them. and they're just traditionally they've been losing a lot of money on them. So there are some positive reasons why you would do that, take that stance on EVs, but this isn't going to last forever, and everybody knows it. 3 years from now, we could have a totally different view from the new administration that comes in. Who knows? And the automotive companies, they're not stupid. They know that too. So they're preparing for the future. And, electrification is going to be a part of it, at least in the view of Ford Motor Company, and I'm sure the others as well. So, like I said, the interesting thing about that is, if you can clearly see that Ford still views the future as an electrified future, and they just made that big announcement last month about this new truck that's coming 2 years from now. It's going to be on a dedicated EV platform, and it's going to be significantly less cost to produce. The reason they're doing that is obviously the tax rebates and credits are gone, so they need to find a way to build electric vehicles that can be sold at much lower prices so that they can sell more of them to people. So Ford is leading the charge on that. They're going to these new EV platforms in the future. And, you put all this together and it makes you think, okay, well, Ford is clearly not stepping away from EVs, and they're not stepping away from EV pickup trucks either. So like I was saying in previous videos, I think the F-150 Lightning is going to come back for 2026 and 2027. That's my view on it based on everything that I've been told. I think they're going to keep making this truck for 2 more years before they pull the plug on it, no pun intended. And then we'll see that new replacement that's going to be on a dedicated EV platform. We don't have any specs or details on that yet, but I think it's going to be radically different from this particular Gen 3 F-150 Lightning. So, moral of the story is, I don't think the F-150 Lightning is done. Yes, you can make the business case if you want to write a cool news article that Ford should cancel the Lightning. You can make that argument based on numbers. But Ford's got a lot invested in this truck, and even though it doesn't sell nearly as well as the gasoline versions, there are a lot of people who want this truck. This is the best-selling EV truck in the country. And going forward, Ford can take a lot of this knowledge that they've learned and move it forward into the next iteration, I guess. So there's also a lot of reasons to keep this truck around, and they've already got all the tooling set up for it and everything. They can produce them. They can go right back into production quickly when that supplier comes back online. So I don't think the F-150 Lightning is done. I think we're going to see early 2026 calendar year, they're going to start producing these things again, roll them down the line, and I think we'll probably see one more model year of this truck in 2027 before it's done. We'll see. That's not in stone, but based on everything that I've gathered, I think that's the way it's going to work out. So it's interesting, and I think it's good to have options. We've seen for 2026, the 3.5 EcoBoost now has new emissions technology on it, gasoline particulate filters, which that's a whole other video we could get into. It reduced horsepower by like 18 horsepower on that engine. So that tells you that the GPF is really reducing flow in the exhaust. And in the future, it might be a whole new can of worms with check engine lights and all of this and that, just like we've seen on the diesel engines over the years. So, there's a lot of moving and shaking going on at Ford with this new technology and preparing for the emissions future and everything. And so I just really don't see them stepping away from electrified trucks. I just don't think that's going to happen. But anyway, if you want an F-150 Lightning, a new one, just hang in there for a few more months, and I think you'll be able to go to the dealer and get one. So what do you guys think? Man, I still love this truck. I mean, other than the fact that the towing range on a long distance trip is not great, aside from that, this is probably the best truck I've ever had. Working on 4 months into this now, and I would still tell you this is probably the best overall truck I've ever had for lots of different reasons. But I don't know. What do you guys think? We'll talk to you later.